Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this new webinar organized by the HSBooster project. It's actually the initial webinar of a series of 3 events that we will have in the next 2 weeks, every Thursday at 11. So, you know, the appointment is the same. And the topic of these events is AI standardization, challenges and opportunities. It's my pleasure, of course, to introduce this event. And my name is Maria Giuffrida. I'm from Trust IT and Compla, who are the coordinators of HSBooster. My role will be just, you know, to give some introductory explanations about the series, introduce HSBooster, the agenda, and then I will leave the floor to the main speakers of this first event. For those who don't know, HSBooster is a coordination and support action funded by the European Commission. It's actually a project funded to help other projects in their standardization strategies. What we do is basically find experts in the same field of the project, and we are very broad in this sense because we cover every possible topic. We have some priorities, but we are really open in terms of topics. And we match these experts with the project in order to help the projects understand how they can valorize their results and increase their impact, considering also contributing to standardization in various forms. In this slide, you find some technical, let's say, details about HSBooster, as well as the names of all the other partners that belong to the consortium. The most famous, let's say, type of service that HSBooster offers is a one-to-one mentoring, so a one-to-one consultancy that lasts overall 3 months on average, where we set up various meetings between an identified expert and the project who applies to receive this consultancy and this support. And all of this is free of charge, of course, for projects. We are financially supporting the experts for their time that they spend working with the project. The projects that we will listen to today, that we have invited, have all already benefited, let's say, from this type of consultancy, and so they are now in a position to share their views and their progress and their opinions. We are also introducing new type of services. You find them listed here. One is the support for CEN workshop agreements. It's a specific type of activity where we can give you more information if you're interested. And the other one is the organization of what we call deep dive workshops. Today, we are starting exactly a new deep dive series of workshops on the topic of AI. What we mean by this, we mean a series of connected events where we really go into the details of a specific thematic area. I will put later the link in the chat if you are interested in participating in other workshops or in some workshop agreements in the future. Before starting officially this event today, I just want to remark some housekeeping rules. For your information, the event is being recorded right now, and it will be made available on the HSBooster website in the next few days. Also, the slides of each presenters will be made available. You have at your disposal the opportunity to interact with us. You can either use the chat to write your comments, your views, your opinions, to put links to initiatives that are interesting and connected to our conversation. And also feel free to use the chat to introduce yourself if you want. We'll also have an interactive moment in the end of the event using Slido. At the same time, you can also use the Q&A function, so the Q&A box, to ask questions to the speakers whenever you want, okay? And we'll have a discussion session, but just input your question when you have them. As I was saying, we are now starting the first event of a series of 3 webinars. They will be every Thursday at 11, from 11 to 12:30. We have this one today focused on use cases, and we'll see the agenda in a moment. Next week we will focus on ethical aspects connected with AI. And in the other following week, so 11th of July, we will talk about the connection between AI and other emerging technologies, giving a specific attention also to the role of SMEs navigating AI standardization. Coming to today's agenda, we will start in a moment with the speakers. So we will have a keynote speech from Renaud Di Francesco from CEN-CLC JTC 21. Then we'll have a panel discussion moderated by our expert Isabel Caetano from IPQ. She's chair of the technical committee for AI in IPQ. We will have 4 projects in different vertical sectors sharing their views and their experience, and Isabel will introduce them and moderate the discussion with them. And then we will have an interactive session moderated by another expert of HSBooster, Farshid Amir Abdollahian from University of Hertfordshire. And then we will conclude by 12:30. So this is the agenda. I will now stop sharing my screen to leave the floor to the next speakers. Renaud is connected already, so I leave the floor to Renaud directly. Can you hear me, Renaud?
Yes. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Yes, okay. I'm trying to share now. Can you? Yeah, you probably now see my screen.
Yes, we see your full screen. So if you put your presentation
from the beginning.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great.
Does it scale properly on your screen?
Yeah, it shows great. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much for inviting me. So I understand today we have people who are very motivated by EU R&D cooperation and AI. And as a pre-introduction, I would like to remind you that if we have the nice communication infrastructure and services, mobile communications, which we have today throughout Europe, it is also thanks to EU research and development funded by the European Commission. In fact, for 4G, there was a key project called FRAMES. For 5G, for 3G. For 4G, it was METIS 1. For 5G, it was METIS 2. So I hope that the projects around the table are also in a similar position to impact the successful standardization, and the standardization doesn't stop where the standards are written, but really when the systems and services are implemented in compliance with the regulation and the interoperability requirements. So I'm very thrilled to potentially be a contributor to help you make a decision and a commitment to standardization if you haven't done so yet, and also to help you see how it can benefit the project and also the organizations which you are representing in this project. So let me recall very simply a rationale for standards. Very often in my own organization, I am asked to explain, but you know, I happen to work for Sony. Sony is an electronics company, and it has also content activities, Sony Pictures, Sony Music, Sony Interactive Entertainment. In gaming, it's called PlayStation. So why do we do standards? And I had to find a way to convince them and to explain what is obvious to you, why we do standards. And the rationale I found is a simple one. IPE, interoperability, plug and play. It's easy to show. You have Bluetooth, you have USB, you have mobile communication, you have devices which are from different manufacturers. You have services which are from different suppliers, and they interwork, interoperate thanks to standards. Without standards, you would have only no choice, one single solution, proprietary. Procurement. When you are in B2B, when you are a large company or a small company, you want to do your procurement, you buy solutions, you buy components, you buy equipment, you have to issue call for tenders. And in those call for tenders, you want to have multiple sources. You have to, you want to have the possibility to negotiate the best price, the best features, the best delivery scenario, etc. So you want also, legally, you are required, your procurement, to be transparent and auditable. Inside your company, your CFO will request it. Outside of your company, if you are a large company, you have to comply with many rules, and you have to be auditable in whatever you do. Otherwise, you run into trouble like corruption, suspicion of corruption and things like that. So standards, if you comply with standards, if your suppliers comply with standards, then you are safe. Ecosystem, it's the most important thing. You can gather multiple developers, multiple users around the same table, and they will work together, and the demand will be aggregated, and the supply will be aggregated. So your ecosystem is a huge advantage. And if you have standards to refer to, of course, the ecosystem is more transparent and more enticing. If you are an independent developer and you know there is a standard requested for such an application, then you will look into the standards and you will invest time, because then you can supply your solution compliant with standard to maybe buyer number one, then buyer number two, etc. This is going to be very interesting. And in the case of the EU AI Act, we speak of a regulation. So it's a regulation impacting every organization, every citizen, every user, so everyone in the value chain and the society. And therefore, what is scary when you have such a requirement, such a regulation, is if you are a company, if you are a public service organization, how do I make sure I comply with the AI Act? The easiest way is to use standards, and assembling a number of standards developed for that purpose will give a presumption of conformity. So if you are a manufacturer like my company, Sony, you go to the market and you just claim you are compliant with the EU AI Act, you are exposed to a huge legal risk. And in fact, you want to avoid that, absolutely. So if you can rely on standards and say, hey, I have done everything possible, I have relied on the standards produced through CEN-CLC and possibly ETSI in compliance with the standardization request and with the EU AI Act, then you have the presumption of conformity. So that's the main rationale. It's a big rationale. It's a driver. It's a force for us. Now, we are facing for AI a cultural context. If you suppose that AI is software, if you are naive, and you are not, you are an EU project, you are aware of the multiple facets of systems with AI. But some people would, from the top of their mind, they would think AI is software, so AI comes within the context of information technology culture, software companies, the platforms. You have two approaches basically there. They are very well known to all of us. The closed approach, proprietary. You do everything on your own. It's a black box, nobody sees inside, but everybody enjoys the quality you can supply, especially if you are a large company, well established in the market, and you can drive that market, proprietary. And you mark up your systems as you want. You can discount your systems as you want. You are in a proprietary context. Now, if you think your own resources are not enough to leverage the market, to develop it, you go for open approach, open source. You invite developers. It's a decentral approach. The question then emerges, who controls that ecosystem? In some cases, you have a structured open source approach where people sign an MOU, a license, etc., and they come, and there is a leader organization in that context. Sometimes it's more democratic, it's more flat organization. There is always a license scheme, and you know the example of Linux, and so it's not because it's open source that it's not under a license. You have license ensuring that the system is consistent and that it's not repurposed for a different goal than its initial mission, etc. And so transparency and quality, how do you ensure so transparency? If it's open source, it's fairly transparent usually, but then the quality, and then you have a concatenated business models on which a company, for instance, helps you with your open source solutions. And this is a model well known in the context of Linux companies like Red Hat and things similar organizations. So you can mark up the value added service on top of open source. But okay, that's the model. But for the AI Act, we have a different context. So for the AI Act, we have AI is a system, so systems with AI, and we have the additional clause, it is in Europe. And in our case, legally, Europe means the European Union, of course, for the implementation of the EU AI Act. But let's not be blind. Let's be aware that CEN-CLC is not under the EU. CEN-CLC is under the CEPT countries, Conférence européenne des postes et télécommunications. The name is in French. It tells you it's an old organization, and it has basically all countries in the European region, and including Turkey and the United Kingdom, etc. So if you are neighbor of the European Union, very often you want to comply with the AI Act as an organization if you want to supply on the EU market. So it's easier for everyone to think of Europe broader than the European Union in terms of market and society, but in terms of regulation, for that particular case, AI, focus on the AI Act, of course, which is valid only for the European Union. Now, we want to have products embedding AI features. So, but those products, they have many more features, not just AI. So they have to comply with other regulation. Imagine you have a medical device system with added AI features inside. So you have to comply with the medical device regulation. If you are in manufacturing, you have to comply with the machinery directive as well. And so it gives you already a sense of what has to be done. It's not just the AI Act, but it's, of course, the focus is on the AI Act. Now, when you do such a system with AI inside and you want to deploy it in the European region, you have to think of the regional governance versus the global governance. So you might also come up with the idea that if you want to export very broadly to the world your product, you want to comply ideally with global standards, not just regional standards. Why limit to regional if you can do global? But can you do global in all cases? So in some cases where where you can go very broadly and in your specification, your feature doesn't depend too much on respecting democracy, respecting fundamental rights. You might think, okay, it's something which will work in China, it's something which will work in the USA and other parts of the world. And for instance, in the case of data and its quality, data set quality, governance of data, the dependency with fundamental rights is not straight, is not necessary. So you might have contexts where the state or the government is given priority over the citizens. Whereas we know in Europe, the citizens are given priority over the state, and that's called democracy. But other regions have different schemes. They also work in some way in economic terms. So, I mean, we are not there to redefine the world, but to look at it and fit in it. So data and quality might be satisfied, for instance, by a standard which is 5259. ISO IEC standard about data governance. So, but for other requirements which depend very much more on respecting fundamental rights, such as risk management systems for AI and trustworthy AI specifications, or specification ensuring that your AI is trustworthy, that the cyber security is there supporting your EU goals, then regional governance is a must, and it cannot be overlooked. So when we discussed with the European Commission, what do you think of the ISO IEC 23894, which is a global standard helping organizations to organize their risk management? They said, hey, yes, but we do not speak of giving criteria, giving box ticking to organizations. We have the EU AI Act, and we have products with AI embedded to put on the market, and therefore it's not just the organization which needs a check, it's the product itself. So that's why you find limits to global governance might not be enough in the case of risk management. The same goes for trustworthiness, as an example. So I put this very high on my slide because I'm more familiar with this, and I can tell you the reason why I volunteer in the early days of JTC 21, the committee handling AI for what concerns the EU AI Act at CEN-CLC. It's because the Commission said, hey, we want to target high risk. And I'm an engineer, and I am aware of Titanic. Titanic was handled with every subsystems of Titanic being handled as high risk. The problem was in the interoperability and interaction and interworking of the different reliabilities of the subsystems of Titanic, which built actually a system proving to be not so reliable. So the high risk concept defined top down, for me as an engineer, it's what I would call a risk. And therefore I want to address it, and I volunteered to be of assistance because I think risk is an engineering concept which is understood by the engineering community. And sometimes you have, if you take a commercial system, it has a version 1 which can be high risk and a version 2 which can be low risk, because in between you have introduced enough risk management and countermeasures. An example from the industrial history is the railway systems of the 1830s were high risk, but the railway systems of the 1860s were low risk. And what happened in between? It's the hydraulic braking system invented by Westinghouse and spreading around the world, de facto standard, decreasing the risk. Conversely, in software, when you move from version 1 to version 2, it's usually at night, and you disconnect all users from your software. And the reason why you do that is because in a transient phase, you move from a fairly safe and stable configuration called version 1 to a target version which is aiming to be safe and stable equally, or at least or sometimes better if possible than version 1, but we know in software it's not always the case. You add feature and maybe you lose some stability and reliability for someone. So in between you have bugs which can happen and need to be solved. And your system moving from low risk to low risk can go through a transient high risk. So we know high risk is not there in a stable way and forever. That's why a care in the standard can help define better what it is in practice and how we can address it in practice, not always knowing if a system is really high risk or not high risk. Another consideration is, you could say, by domain of use, because here we aim at a horizontal standard valid for all domains on AI risk management. So if you take the medical domain or the healthcare domain, some people not thinking enough would say, oh, high risk. The whole domain is high risk. My claim is no. The hospital beds are not a high risk product usually. It's a very fairly simple thing. And so managing the location of the beds in the hospital can be done with AI, and it's not a high-risk system. Another even easier case is a parameter watch which measures your biological parameters. It's not a high-risk system. You don't die because you wear it. And in the same way, more technical, you measure the blood pressure. If you put the measurement device right on your arm or on your hand, you don't die of it. If you put it around your neck, of course, you might die of it, but it's not the intended purpose. So, in short, high risk is in itself a question. But now, within CEN-CLC, we have worked on an EN on high risk management. I can tell you where we are now. We have built a catalog of a number of very, very varied examples, which are in a way use cases, and to help anyone orient themselves in the risk arena. And in each use case, you have harm, the worst harm possible, the risk, that is the probability times the harm, and you have the countermeasures or the methodology to reduce that risk. And this is something which we have produced already, and it's being now formalized completely in a document. We have agreed on the details on how to do that. And we have a process for risk management which is agreed. Step 1, step 2, etc. An org chart showing you how to do that. And within that process, sometimes we call the catalog to check against examples. And if you see that your case is not fitting an interpolation of multiple examples, then you add your own example, but you have at least somewhere to start from with your risk management. And we have now other sections of this European norm being developed, so it's work in progress. Similarly, we have trustworthiness being progressed, and to give you an example of activities, from the 9th to the 10th of July, there will be a meeting on trustworthiness in Brussels, face-to-face, only for the members, of course, registered members of the committee. You can join this standardization at CEN-CLC JTC 21 by joining your favorite national committee. And so in every place of operation of CEN-CLC, you have a national committee. For instance, in Italy, I'm joining from Italy. I happen to be the head of delegation for European standardization of AI in Italy. This is Uninfo, a joint committee of the two standards organizations of Italy. In France, it's AFNOR. In Germany, it's DIN. In the UK, it's BSI. So you can really, and Belgium, etc. You have Netherlands, Norway, and many more. So it's a very interesting activity. I have mentioned additional topics which I will not go into the details for. Conformity assessment, cyber security, quality management system, very important to know how you define your quality management system for systems using AI, and an overarching topic, overarching at least over the European norm on AI risk management and the European norm on AI trustworthiness, is how fundamental rights play out with AI. And you can take the European Charter of Fundamental Rights, article by article, scan it, analyze it, and think of what would happen, what would go wrong with an AI system. And we want to avoid that it goes wrong with an AI system, and therefore we analyze this and we take this into account in our risk management and in our trustworthiness procedures. So trustworthiness is maybe the most important thing if you want an adoption of AI in Europe, because what's your AI? Says the user. Can I trust your AI? Says the worker. To the human resource department, for instance, and so on.
Renaud,
So
sorry to
yeah,
interrupt you, because time is
yes,
getting up, but we
yes.
have a question from Pat McCarthy in the chat. If you can provide,
Okay,
after
yes.
your concluding
Yes,
slide
my
very
last
quickly,
slide is here. So
please.
sorry, I was a bit too detailed. So I will just go through this last point, which I think is very important. That's my goal today, to convince you. Please join a national body of your choice if you haven't done so yet. It's for a fee, of course, but if you are an SME, if you are an academic, etc., there are specific conditions. You are not forced to join the national body of your place of operation. You can choose another one. There is a vibrant market. I have used the French committee, I have used the Italian committee, I have used the German committee. It depends really. You have the choice. And please also think of patent your project inventions where possible. And people have also the misconception that AI is an area where no patent is possible. You can't patent a core AI concept or algorithms. You can patent an application which takes data in the real world, transforms, analyzes, etc., uses AI and returns something concrete in the real world. So real world to real world through AI, that could be patentable. If it's inventive, it's original, think about it, patent it before you go to standards, and you will bring more value to your organization, to your project, and also a patent which is linked to a standard has higher value than a patent which is in isolation. So in the standardization process, you also meet stakeholders and you meet potential partners for future commercial operation, for instance, or for future scientific projects. So it's very interesting to see the different opinions, views, and interests, and together, that's what makes the work on standards to support the EU AI Act very interesting, and it's a learning experience. I really recommend it. Now I will have to stop sharing because otherwise I can't see the question.
Yes, thanks, Renaud.
I'm sorry, I'm still trying to stop the sharing here. Yes,
Yes, you stopped.
in the chat,
Yes,
in
I
the
think
chat.
Isabel already addressed the question. Now I will leave Isabel now the floor.
Ah, yes, please.
Okay, so Renaud, if you want, you can just check my answer and build on that. But I think the main question was how to attend this meeting in Brussels. So it's
Yes, yes,
working group members. So
yes,
if someone wants to attend, they should be
yes,
as a working group 2 members for this
yes,
meeting. So you need to contact your
yes.
body to be mandated as an expert to join the work going on.
Yes, thank you, Isabel. Yes, working group 4 is in charge of trustworthiness, and working group 2 is in charge of risk management. Working group 5 is in charge of cyber security. They may meet on the 12th of July. Anyway, once you are a member and once you are registered through your national body, you have visibility on the intranet of CEN for the meetings, so you can register to the meetings. It's very transparently put on the server, and you also have visibility on any previous contribution. So every document, which is of course to be handled with care because it's work in progress, and therefore it's not to go outside of the committee because it could give the wrong impression. Imagine a journalist has a version number 10 and the actual final one will be version 15, and the assumption in number 10 have virtually no value for outside if you are not part of the discussion.
Thank you very much, Renaud. So we now need to move to
Thank you.
our webinar. So good morning, everyone, again, and welcome again for this panel that will present several EU-funded projects and their liaison with standardization activities, also highlighting the HSBooster liaison and the importance for the projects to develop some follow-up activities related to standardization. I'm honored to be your moderator today. I'm also the chair of the Portuguese Technical Committee for Artificial Intelligence in the Portuguese National Standardization Body, IPQ. And today we also have the privilege to join this HSBooster with a distinguished panel of experts and project representatives that are here with us today, each bringing a wealth of knowledge and unique perspectives to the table. So our format today will include an initial short presentation from each panelist according to the project, and then we will have moderated discussions that I will try to facilitate, and then a Q&A session where we will open the floor to your questions. So feel free to use the chat and introduce your questions. And now I will start the panel session with our 4 project representatives. So apologies if I don't spell correctly all the names, but we have here today Herhoy Keko from the Synergy project, then Radha Hussein from IDERHA project, Rita Giuffrida from MobiSpace, and Christos Emanuelis from the STAR project. I will ask you when introducing your presentation just to say something about yourselves, because it's much more natural that you present yourselves. Please keep it brief, because we are trying to have all the 4 presentations and then still some time for the discussion with all of you. So I will start now with Herway, and sorry for the pronunciation, but I've tried hard, and the presentation of the Synergy project. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. I hope you can now see the screen that I'm sharing.
Yes.
Okay, you should be seeing it. Okay, thanks for the nice introduction. My name is Hrvoje. It's not very international. It's a very Croatian name. During the course of this project, this is probably the most mature project of the projects that are going to be presented here, as this is already a completed project. It started back in 2019 and then finished in at the very end of 2023. During this project, I was working for Končar. That's a large electric equipment manufacturer in Croatia, but and now currently I am working in a startup world, so to say. My career is a blend of academic and industry experience. But let's go back to the project itself. It has a long name. The acronym is not really a proper acronym, as you can see here. It has been a part of, let me just click here. Okay, this is the consortium. It's a big project, so a big consortium, many very well-known names from many countries. It was led by the Spanish company IDERHA, and technical coordination of the project was by SUIT5. It has been a part of the large sequence of calls for digital transformation. This one was from 2019, Big Data Solutions for Energy. So big data, big project. 24 partners, 9 countries, almost 13 million euro of budget and almost 10 million euros of funding. It has successfully completed. We have the last few moves with the administrative completion right now. A part of the project was standardization activities. This was what I was tasked for. That's why I'm presenting here. What were the project objectives? You have now with the more renewables focused electricity system, you have more orders of magnitude more data in the energy value chain. This increases complexity in the energy system management, and there are also new multiple stakeholders that are cross-referenced. Energy market brings that to the table as well. Then you have to have a better understanding, more insight in the behavior of your system through analyzing this data. And all this brings into the world that was formerly not connected that much, brings a lot of new business barriers, but also interoperability barriers. Now, what's the solution that we bring to the table? It's to establish a framework that will extract the added value from the data that currently stands unused or just is a burden to the business entities, to unlock the value of the data in the electricity value chain. Then to do that by providing a platform that would give you advanced services for collection, curation, mapping, and linking of the data, and all that with the solution that allows you to share, trade, safeguard data, and also the pre-trained models. So these are the challenges. How to facilitate the coordination between the stakeholders in terms of data exchange, in terms of business based on this data, how to enhance the electricity networks in the end by these solutions, providing you better forecast, better margin of error, and so on. Recently here in our region of Croatia, we have had a regional blackout in the southern part of Europe, similar to something what happened almost 20 years ago in almost the whole Europe. These kind of things can be mitigated or at least seen ahead with taking the value out of the data. Then it's not feasible to have everybody learn everything from scratch. So the idea is to make an exchange of the data and the trained models to shift the decision making to a higher level. Finally, in the end, it's not just empty talk to develop really a platform and marketplace where you could really exchange this and handle the data and revoke maybe some authorization and so on, so that you build the infrastructure on top of all of the three previous points could happen. This is just a bird's eye view. It's not a simple thing. It's also not really, if it's in a bird's eye, it's not really complicated. You have a platform, you have a way to check in the data, to get the data out of the that is currently existing outside the platform into the platform. Then you have the contract management, you have the applications that create new data out of themselves, bring that back to the platform. You can then trade this data on top of it and so on. There are many interactions, as you can see on the image in the corner of the screen. But this is basically the idea. This is a scaffolding and infrastructure of doing that for the electricity value chain. these are the three key innovations. This is the ecosystem that I have explained. The idea is for this ecosystem and what comes out of it to become a kind of backbone to enable the development of new services and innovative applications. So beyond the project itself, it's not that the project serves just for itself. Then the idea is for data platform to be holistic, to not just to have a partial management of the value chain, to manage the data securely, to ensure that the data conforms to a proper model, to harmonize the data, to take care of the quality of the data, and so on. And finally, to create a kind of a one-stop shop for this kind of electricity data value chain. We have been present in many of the, besides HSBooster, we have been present in many of the organizations related to these kind of projects. We have also had an open call where we have 5 successful applications. All of those have been successfully completed and disseminated. This was also a very interesting experience to have somebody who is not in the consortium work on the solution on these infrastructural solutions delivered by the project itself. Finally, let's get to the topic of standardization. We have had 2 reports. We have had a first version of the report delivered in the 33rd month of the project, and then after the end of the project, we have delivered the final version. It has been a very interesting experience because the landscape has changed really very significantly. The development of the 2023 Act has coincided with the project development. So in the second version, we really had to redo the things almost from scratch because the whole landscape has changed a lot. In 2019, when the proposal for this project has been written, many of the things that we talk today as a given, like data spaces, haven't existed at all. These are just a few of the topics that have changed. There is a plan on digitalizing the energy system. There is the EU Data Act. There is also the AI Act. In a more specific way, there is the European Energy Data Exchange Reference Architecture developed by the efforts of many projects collaborating through the Bridge initiative. And the last year's implementation regulation that obliges the metering data services providers to give you basically your electricity metering data in close to real time. This has been a huge pain point in the delivery of the pilots. When creating the standardization deliveries for this project, we have had 2 main axes of the standardization contribution. One was, let's say, we can split this in 2 things. One is the development of the project by itself, and another is the actual implementation of the results of the projects in practice. So one of the principal developments of the project that contributed to standardization is the synergy reference architecture that I have illustrated previously. And within the architecture, primarily the common information model of the platform. And then yet another contribution, almost equally relevant, was the experience in developing of the 5 pilot with 21 demo cases. So the experience of putting this into practice has given us almost the equal amount of standardization needs as did our developments on the project. In the synergy reference architecture, this is what underpins the platform and all of the synergy applications. The synergy common information model is probably the most important thing here that makes this solution suitable for the electricity value chain. It's not just a static model. A part of the model are also the maintenance and perpetuation procedures. It's not reasonable to think that you are going to have a model invent a model that's going to cover all and every use cases you can see in the future. That has been tried, it doesn't work. So instead of that, we have also delivered the procedures on how to make this model continue being still relevant in the future. And also we have taken care to diligently apply the model within the platform. It respects the established standards because you are not going to take them out of the picture. It handles the big data scale, which is also important for a big data project. And these lifecycle management are also quite important. Then you need to ensure that this is that semantic interoperability works. What's that? In more plain terms, it's that you understand what's the meaning of the data that you get. Some numerical data without its semantic value, it's not working. You need to know what does it mean. Is it a temperature? What kind of temperature it is? Where is it measured? How does it change? And so on. All of these things you need to know that. We go beyond data exchange, as I have mentioned, because the pre-trained models are also considered assets. And in that regard, you need to take interoperability and sovereignty quite seriously. You know that at the moment, interoperability in this world is not, it's not really what we would want it to be. We have noticed that also in our efforts to develop synergy. Finally, the second part of the standardization, the one driven by the project implementation experiences, tells us that the situation across the 5 pilot countries is quite uneven in terms of regulation, in terms of the adoption of the technical issues, in terms of the maturity of the whole market. This raises quite a new challenge, because the solution that you are developing has to work in a well-advanced, well-developed market, and also should work also for a market that still has to catch up with the first one. So in terms of the bike race, it should work for the one with the yellow shirt, and also for the ones at the very end of the race. So regardless of the maturity, there are some takeaways, and the most important is that ensuring full interoperability and maintaining sovereignty over the data is not of the highest importance. So you have to be collaborative towards existing system, because it's not reasonable to expect that you are going to replace all of that. That was not even the case from the beginning. And I have to say, we have underestimated the impact of that is the walled gardens or proprietary solutions that we had to amend, replace, maybe create even a redundant solution for data gathering in order to get the data out so that we can run the applications. The amount of work that has been done for this is huge, and this is doable if you push for the standard also through the regulation. So the regulation is not just something that makes your life harder, it could as well make your life much easier. This is all a moving target, and the landscape, as I told you already, changes quite significantly, very dynamically. The work by this project is embedded in many of the proposals and the documents that have been shared previously. And the efforts of this project have already given kind of a birth to new projects, new initiatives, new even product development activities. So I guess it's not, I guess this is the general recap of what has happened in the Synergy project. I think I have raised not just closed questions, but also raised some. So please, if you have some, feel free to ask.
Thank you very much, Erho. So the idea now, because we have time limitations, is to profit from the occasion to have all the additional 3 presentations. And at the end, we will have a joint discussion with some questions and some cross-fertilization topics, because some of you already are focusing on similar issues and concerns, so we can have a joint discussion. So next one is Hada Hussein, and we are now moving from the energy sector to the health sector. And the floor is yours, Hada. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel, and I'll try to make it short. My name is Rada Hussein, and I'm Principal Investigator at Ludwig-Boltzmann Institute in Austria, and we are leading, as LBI Digital Health, we are leading the interoperability work package in IDERHA, our new project in the health domain. We started just 1 year, so we are in the beginning phase. So the main goals of IDERHA to implement one of the first pan-European health databases. As you know, that European health basis started with health, and we have this big challenge. So we are aiming to provide this federated data infrastructure, and also to develop AI and machine learning algorithm to work with data sets. And our pilot will be in lung cancer, but we are aiming to have this architecture open for the other domains of health. But for the first 5 years, the lifespan of the project, we focus on lung cancer. We'll use mainly OMOB as that's the recommended standard for secondary use of data, and we aim to target the secondary use of data. And also we are going to have this personal health data environment, so we can empower patients to use apps for monitoring their health status. So and also we are trying to make policy recommendation that fulfill the spirit of the health data space, and how to provide new policies, guidelines, and even extending the standards for real world data regulation and for health technology assessment decision making. So that's in brief. We follow the health data space principle, like common standards, infrastructure, governance framework, empowering individual, and put the patients in the center of this infrastructure, and also enable health data reuse as secondary use of data. This slide summarizes what we are doing. We are collecting different data from different resources, from EHR, either OMOB or FHIR standards, imaging in DICOM standards, wearable. It's not, we don't have recognized standards till now for patient-generated health data from wearable, and also we need to have some trial data. Then our infrastructure will deal with that, and we have this. We plan to develop this AI algorithm for lung cancer risk prognosis and risk prediction, remote patient wearable, and engagement app. So we don't build everything from scratch. We have partners and we have synergies with AIDEN project, Optima in cancer, and this slide just provides some snapshot of the networks and the projects that we are working hand in hand with that, and also verification, and we'll use the FAIR Plus cookbook for this regard. The project is led by J&J as industry, and with Fraunhofer as academia, because it's an IHI project, and even every work package should be led by academic and industry partner as well. So we as LBI leading the work package 4, and we said, guys, we need to have not to reinvent the wheel. That's the reason we registered in the HSBooster to start making this synergy and to open a channel to talk with the other project. As in the previous slides, there are many projects working in the domain. So let us have this synergy, and thanks to HSBooster, they facilitated these exchanges. Especially, we have a wonderful expert, Emily, that supports us in that. So in the second part of my presentation, I would like to talk about our expertise, how to build this synergy among health data projects and in cancer use cases based on health standard. With the support of our consultant, Emily, we invited other 5 projects for different domains, like iHelp and Escape project. They make fantastic job in extending the standards to accommodate the patient and integrate patient-generated health data with the clinical data generated in the hospitals. And now there are big players like the big infrastructures and the pilots for European health space, like Big Picture and the the health data at EU pilot, and the EU CAME that's mainly concerned with the medical imaging. So, and we identified the different 3 categories required for the health data space standards. So we have 3 categories: health data exchange, represented by DICOM and FHIR, and standards for data discovery. And health data at EU is working to have new extension of the CAT-EB called the Health CAT-EB, and we are looking forward to these standards. And I think it will be within this year. They will release this standard before the end of this year. And also we have the enabling semantic interoperability standards, like the OMOB common data models. And also our consultant paid our attention to other ISO groups and ISO standards and other standards, as we see in this fantastic table created by our consultant. And we submitted the primary results of this interesting activity to the Medical Informatics Europe and as a full paper, and it was accepted. And that's the main table and main results, how these projects implement different standards and different categories. And also we during the meetings and inviting the sixth project, we go deep in sharing lesson learned, what's working, what doesn't work, and share this expertise together. Also, the HSBooster, they helped us to make synergy with other alliance, and not only other projects. For example, we have participated in the white paper of the Alliance for Internet of Things and Edge Computing Innovation, also with Big Data Value Association. And as I mentioned, we were able to have a fully accepted paper in the Medical Informatics Europe, and that we will present in August this year. In our conclusion, that we have fantastic work together, and the HSBooster allow us to prove the concept that we need to discuss with each other. We need to share lesson learned in interoperability, and how the health standard being used in different projects. We mainly focus on semantic interoperability as a big part of that. Also, we concluded something very interesting. We need tools, not just this discussion. HSBooster enable these venues for discussion, but we need tools that facilitate for the new project or existing project what standards work, how it works, and how to make this shared lesson in more proper format. So this tool is very important as well. And as I mentioned, that thanks for IHI, that we are one of the first funded project of call one of IHI, and that's the key facts of our project. It's about 40 million, one of the big project, and we hope that we can have this first implementation of HDS and shaping even the European health data space for secondary use of data. Thanks a lot, and I'm looking for the question after the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to inform that, of course, all these presentations will be available afterwards, and also that for these projects you can access more information on the websites, especially those who are already in their final stage. They have already the deliverables about standardization that are available online, so you can also access more information. Now I will pass the floor. I will share the floor with Rita, and we will have a presentation about the MobiSpace project. Thank you, Rita.
Thank you, Isabel. In the meantime, I'm also sharing my screen, and I hope that it is visible. Perfect. Okay. So as Isabel was also mentioning, my name is Rita Frida, and I am a member of the Trust IT Services team. In particular, in this company, I mainly work on communication dissemination activities, but I also take care of research activities. And in particular, in the MobiSpaces project, I am mostly involved in standardization activities. And in the next slide, I will also showcase what the team has been done in terms of AI standardization. Okay, so MobiSpaces is a project that aims to build a data governance platform that utilizes outcomes that are, let's say, coming from AI-based mobility analytics to optimize what we call the data path. And in particular, we aim to do so, let's say the platform that we are building, we try to make it as much mobility aware and mobility optimized. In particular, as you can imagine, while we are trying to build this platform, we need also to extract quite a lot of data that are coming from mobile sensors, but also IoT devices. And what we try to do is to also establish, let's say, some partners that can also let's say, improve this platform from an efficient, trustworthy privacy point of view. And in this way, we also try to, let's say, also use some data model standards that can also improve the interoperability and data sharing that we are using. So in this way, we can also avoid also, let's say, any data that are duplicated, let's say, and unneeded storage. The project has been already started. We are more or less in the half because it started in September 2022, and it will last 36 months. You can see all the partners that are here. We are a pretty big family. We are actually a consortium of 25 partners. And in order to test all the data governance platform that I was mentioning before, in MobiSpaces, we are also building for 5 different use cases. And in particular, the use cases that MobiSpaces is building are related to the mobility sector. And we have 5 in total, as I was mentioning, and in particular 2 are related to the urban transportation systems, and other 3 instead are related to the maritime ones. Let's say, in order to build this platform, we also have standardization goals, and they are summarized in these 4 main bullet points. First of all, we would like also to try, I mean, as much as possible, also to contribute and propose new standards in the mobility and AI sector. Then we would like also to understand, let's say, in which let's say section of the platform that we are building, we can also use any standardization rules or, let's say, ontologies, data models, etc. And for this, we have already identified that the easiest way to do that is actually through the 5 use cases that I just presented. Then we would like also to make sure then that after identifying the most, let's say, the sector, let's say, the use cases, then we can also make sure that we can also apply the standards that have been identified. And then after that, also to learn what are the best practices and lessons learned from other projects that are always dealing with, let's say, artificial intelligence or mobility transportation, so that we can also improve the work that we are performing. So as we also have an important standardization goals, we have also started to do some works. And in particular, we have started all our work by making some mapping analysis. As I was mentioning, this project is actually in the half of its lifetime. So all the analysis that I will present are, let's say, in a preliminary stage, but then obviously we have to improve and, let's say, include many more information here. But what we have done as of now is actually to focus on 3 different mapping analyses. In the first one, we have, let's say, tried to identify the working groups and technical committees that deal with artificial intelligence, edge computing, and also transportation, as these are the main topics of MobiSpaces. And then we have also started to identify the SDOs and national standardization bodies at European level. And then we have also done a mapping analysis done in cooperation with HSBooster. And as I was mentioning, then all this work will also help us understand better how we can develop our use cases from a technical point of view. In particular, as we are also starting to establish a cooperation with HSBooster, I would like also to spend a couple of words about the work that we have done together. And in particular, with HSBooster, we have, let's say, we have worked, let's say, in 2 different ways. First of all, we have made the application to the standards orientation tool. It was a pretty quick, let's say, and fast way of getting support, I have to say, because it is an online tool where we have to include information about the project and our understanding about standardization. And after that, we received a report almost immediately that gave us specific recommendations. And one of the recommendations that was provided to us is also to apply for a consultancy. That it was actually what we did later on. So we applied for a one-to-one service with an expert. And at the end of this cooperation, he actually prepared to us a report, which was useful because it also helped us to increase the landscape analysis that anyway we were already starting with the mapping that we were doing on our own. And in particular, in this report, we have got information about the EU data policy. We got information about the standards, data models, and related organization in the mobility domain, regulations, general regulations, and standardization frameworks, and then also examples of deliverables with best practices in the railway domain. Now, in MobiSpaces, we are, as I was mentioning, we have 5 use cases that are related to the urban and maritime domains. We do not really deal with railway, but anyway, the expert thought that it was useful for us also to take examples from the railway, because then we can also understand how similar projects have implemented standards in their frameworks, that we can also learn from these best practices. So this was overall very appreciated by the team. And something that the expert, the HSBooster expert also put a focus on was the also to highlight any standards related to the artificial intelligence and related technical committees, let's say, always related to mobility and artificial intelligence. Because actually, at the end of all this analysis, what we have done is actually to start to do some classifications per use case. And in particular, we have certain identified standards and the related working group we can be in contact with. So the cooperation also with HSBooster helped us drive forward this analysis. And then, as I was mentioning, then we have now to understand if it would be feasible, let's say, for our use cases also to implement all these standardization rules or data models. But anyway, we already know from where to start. And now in the second half of the project, we will focus mainly on the technical implementation. As next step, I would like just to, let's say, focus on three points. The first one is that, let's say, for us, as we are also a project that has not been finished yet, and we can still learn from similar projects. We would like also to reach out to working groups and technical committees related to AI. So we're also happy to join in this meeting today, because we see that there are also members of working groups related to AI. So for us, it would be nice also to still be in contact with you and understand if we can also use any documentation reports that could be useful to bring forward the development of our use cases. We will continue to perform the landscape analysis. And then obviously, if there are any other projects or experts in the AI community that have also applied to HSBooster, we would be also happy to get in touch with you so that we can also exchange best practices. And with this, I will thank you for your attention, and then I will pass the floor back to Isabel.
Thank you very much.
Everyone.
And now, without more delays, I will pass the floor to Christos. Christos is representing the STAR project and AI in manufacturing. So at this moment, we have already a picture about several projects in several sectors, energy, health, mobility, and now we are going to the manufacturing sector. Thank you. Christos.
Thank you very much, Isabella. Well, today I will be sharing also some experience from a quite mature project, as the STAR project has recently finished, and it's about delivering human-centric artificial intelligence solutions in manufacturing. I'm Christos Emmanuelidis at the University of Groningen in the Netherlands. I actually sit also as an expert in standardization committees at CEN and at ISO. On topics related to maintenance and asset management. I work at the intersection between engineering, computing, and industrial management. And I'm involved in a string of EU projects on human-centric AI. So we would very much like to further engage also with the HSBooster and also benefit from CEN-CLC JTC 21, maybe also contribute to it, providing some input. So you can see the STAR consortium here. It's a very nice partnership of the kind of ecosystem stakeholders that you need for targeting AI solutions in manufacturing. Is being coordinated by net company IDERHA. So in the STAR project, we actually have 3 use cases, 3 kind of categories, families of use cases of pilots. The first one is about human-robot collaboration at Philips here in the Netherlands at Drachten, next to us. There is one on shared human-robot co-working spaces in an industrially relevant laboratory environment at Smart Factory Kaiserslautern in Germany at DFKI, and one at the automotive manufacturing company for components, Iberolef in Portugal. So let me just start by sharing an example from the co-working spaces. So this is from the environment in Smart Factory Kaiserslautern. So what you can see there, well, you see robots and humans moving, and then there is a visual analytics service that detects activities and human presence. So that can help robotic navigation, but you may already figure out that it creates difficulties for privacy concerns. And that was picked by our risk analysis approach. So for us, the next step was, well, instead of doing this so explicitly, work on a solution that uses heat maps. So heat maps are used, you can see here on the left side, the arrows are humans, blue is the robot. So heat maps are used to do a number of things. One of them is where you see bright colors is the robot goal. But then we use heat maps to forecast the human movement and presence. So the solution there is to superimpose the forecasted heat map of human presence to the goal setting heat map for the robot. And in that sense, we circumvent the privacy concerns and mitigate the risks for that. I'll share with you one more example, which is actually characteristics is from the other use cases at Philips. And it's a characteristic of the change happening in human job profiles. So quality control is changing. So you see an example of a human working to prepare data for the machine learning that does the quality control. So that's one change. And then you can see explainable AI helping with that. But there is a second role which is attached to that, is then people interacting with an AI module to do the image labeling, to correct the mistakes of the AI module, to steer the training where it needs to be trained. And as you might guess, this also raises some concerns, because whatever you do in an interactive way in a computer environment, that can be tracked. So that was picked by our work that we did risk assessment applying the Dutch government FRIAM framework for impact assessment, which is actually aligned with the AI Act. So the idea there is that we come back with admissible solutions. Not all of the solutions that perform well are admissible solutions. Why that is important is actually the AI human teaming is changing the way things are done. It's not just that humans can be aided by AI or that AI can be aided by humans, is that the action affordances of each actor is enlarged, is empowered, changes. And so that creates also a different environment upon which to apply the risk assessment, the assessment of the solution. So what we do is we employ a trustworthiness auditing framework that you see here on the bottom left side to do that with the different types of human AI teaming interaction. And then we apply co-creative and evaluative approaches to steer the design of the solution, employing three pillars. The operational one is the one that manufacturers are interested in, because they want to improve performance, efficiency, and so on. The technical dimension is the one that AI experts and roboticists will talk about, so accuracy, robustness, and so on. But we also introduce the ELSA dimension, so ethical, legal, and social aspects. And so all these criteria then become part of our design approach. And that is not a sequential approach, but it is an iterative one. So it has to happen in in different circles. But where do standards come into place then? Well, you have to take into account, as shared also by other panelists earlier, domain-specific standards. So just an example of those from manufacturing operations, from asset management maintenance, but also human factors and ergonomics. So you see some of the systems and software quality in use, and the AI ones, which are still shaping up, quality and trust ones. And I mark here separately the work by CEN-CLC, which is missioned with harmonizing the AI standards and one seeks to benefit from that. So that's some of the outcomes from the STAR project for those of you who wish to probe further, including our deliverables, review of applicable standards, a couple of books initiated, and a few blogs about the auditing framework, the bias management, and so on. And I'm happy to engage with the audience and the panelists in the discussion.
Thank you very much, Christos. So we are approaching to the end of our panel session, and I still need to pass the floor to my colleague to comment on the poll. So I will only ask you one question, and I will ask you also to be very succinct in your answer, to be very clear and quick, just commenting on the most relevant things you are considering when asked about what could be the suggestions to maximize the synergies between EU-funded projects and standardization activities. So from now we could pass, I don't know, Rita, would you like to start with your comment?
Sure. Let's say from my perspective, one way could be really to let's say also prepare as much as possible to share as much as possible best practice, for example, through the development of reporting. Because, for example, what I see is that from our side, very often it is difficult to get in touch also with technical committees, with working groups, if you're not a member. So, for example, something that we appreciated also through HSBooster is that we got the opportunity also to understand a little bit better what are the, let's say, the experts related to artificial intelligence in this case, and also try to start a conversation. So I would say to also try to create as many common reports, I mean, share as many best practices as possible.
Thank you, Rita. Any other comment? Christos, you were the last one, but just comment on this. What could be the synergies between the EU-funded projects and the standardization activities? Any suggestions to progress? How to progress?
So also from my experience in sitting some standardization committees, quite often when the work starts on developing a new standard, abstract concepts are put together and ideas, and contextualizing this on specific use case and examples really helps bringing clarity to the standard and making it to be of practical use for industry and practitioners. So I think the first thing that comes into mind is, well, can we feed into standards some practical examples and use cases of how standards can be applicable, or what could be a good process to introduce standards when developing this?
Thank you.
So that's my first thought on that.
Thank you very much. Erfoy, any comment?
Yes, I think you have noticed that we have had two types of problems there. One was in the trenches, one was in the actual pilots, when you have had to get your hands dirty to get the data out. Either the data was not collected as you haven't seen the value of it, or it was closed somewhere in some kind of you have been expropriated from that. I see already during the development of Synergy that these things have changed a lot. There is this use case library, there are these reference architectures. All of these things make your life easier right now, and maybe I have only joined, asked for HSBooster participation. We have only asked when the project was nearing its completion. A good idea would be to continue with HSBooster from the project start, so that you follow what's going on, you see the pain points there, then you make it more lively. There is no longer this long gap between what happened and so on. Things are getting better. 4 years ago, it was less good, and I think we are going in a good, make the standards. It's not anymore something that is boring and it's not making your life better. That's basically it.
Thank you. So final comments for Rade and Renaud. Rade?
Yeah, thank you. Building on Christop's, I totally agree with you, and I'm thinking in the same way to have practical thing. Most of the project provide this mappers and the standards converter as GitHub, but we need to build interoperability as a service. We can pick everything, especially in healthcare. We know now the recommended standards of HDS, so we can just make these mappers, make it available for existing and the new project, and to provide this interoperability service, not to building everything from scratch. What we can do, I said that we can start with our expert of HSBooster to work slowly with having a template. This template is built on the EIF, the European Interoperability Framework. So now we have a new layer of policy with the EHDS regulation, provide a policy layer, then comes the legal, organizational, semantic and technical one, and all of these projects can feed together this layer. So that's from my point of view as practical aspect. Thank you.
Thank you. Renaud, the final comment before going to the poll session.
Thank you very much. Many thanks to all projects. That's really impressive. And as a citizen, I'm very proud that my tax is serving a clear purpose. It's really brilliant to have that tool. And so more specifically, I'd like to get back to the comment made by Christos, which is quite valid. I think that a starting point for every project, independently on writing a formal contribution of their own on a specific aspect of a standard, which can be expected because you have the experts with you, you have the engineers, you are being paid to also contribute to standardization. So it's something you can do. But before that, you have your use case, and your use case as such is illustrating how AI is being used in concrete, industrial or practical terms. And therefore, this is very valuable to have this. As I mentioned in my intro and overview, we have a catalog of risk management. They are based on use cases, in fact, extracting from a specific use case something a little bit more generic, that it can be useful for many people, but the concrete use of AI is important. So when the European Commission says we have to ensure that the fundamental rights of the European Union are implemented and taken care of when using AI, I would give Christos the example of Article 31 of the Charter of EU Fundamental Rights, which is about fair and just working conditions. And I am sure that the thoughts you have given to human AI collaboration go in that direction. But if you could illustrate how to do a good job and the risk of not doing a good job, which is probably even more important, that would help workers to embrace AI worker collaboration, and that could also give the public in general more confidence that what we are doing with AI is not working towards the extinction of humans, as some media are saying, but really enabling us to do a better job, to be happier. And so that could be a good way, and most appreciated because you have a concrete use case, which we do not have yet in the environment of standardization. And what I have said for the example of Christos is because it came to my mind. I have also had questions for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We need now to close the panel session. I thank you all very much. And now, Fashi, the floor is yours.
Hi, Farshid. I believe that you are muted.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so we have the Slido, and you can join via the link. And the purpose of the work that we put into the Slido is to see where the major obstacles and problems are. Okay, and this is hopefully going to help us guide us through the next stages of our workshops, and also finding kind of a bit of a gap analysis, finding where we need to focus on. Okay, so the first question you have is really to identify in those topics, interoperability, regulatory compliance, etc., where are the topics that you are familiar with, and where are the topics that you think there's less knowledge. So if you like to mark your familiarity, and then we get automatically updated into the slides via your votes, and we can all learn from it. And the panelists, of course, you're very welcome to comment as the results come in to see where your observations from your projects matches what we're getting from the ground. So if we give you maybe a minute more to cast your votes, then we can look at the slides. The examples that are given are not comprehensive. As you know, these ISOs and these standards will change based on the area where your projects had focus. And you saw a very good example from Christos where he had broken down to different domains. Of course, and part of the service that HSBooster provides in a scoping of the standards will be covering this comprehensively. The idea was with the examples that you have some starting point to kind of think of where is an example standard there. So data privacy and security at the moment has 62%, which is pretty good, and I think they are being organized by descending. So we see the next one, interoperability, has 46%, ethics and accountability 38%. So if we could go a little bit lower, yeah. As we're going towards regulatory compliance, standards like ISO 13485, 29%, cross-domain integration, 29%, HRI, 21%, safety and reliability, 14%. Does this match the general view from the projects as you have completed and are continuing? Especially Renaud, do you think that this is kind of matching with your observation as the field is developing on the Joint Technical Committee 21? Christos, you have your hand up.
I'm interested in seeing that, especially in the digital skills, the percentage is quite low. So that should be a challenge across different projects. We are just soon starting a new project called Skill AI Ability, coordinated by Politecnico di Milano and a number of partners. So we are interested in exploring why we're starting from a low baseline in terms of digital skills and what can be done also in terms of policy to raise this lower starting point. And because the nature of human jobs across domains is changing so much now with the interaction with AI, that will be an important one to target.
Absolutely. There were, when we were writing these topics, there were other topics that we kind of took out, and one of them were the environmental regulations, and I think another possibility would have been accessibility. So I think digital skills, and probably the list can be expanded in terms of topic list. But I think this is reasonable to move to the next question. So this gives us an insight. And so the question 2 for you is to see where you are where you're facing obstacles or where you have faced obstacles. And the list is not comprehensive again. The question 3 will ask whatever we have missed, where you can list. But here we came up with some ideas about where our observation has seen people struggling with some of the topics. So please mark the areas where you think you've had most of the difficulties. Like I think at the beginning of my work, regulatory uncertainty has been a major obstacle. And as the standards domain changes, I still need to catch up with it. And that uncertainty just lives with me all the time. Again, we can consider the list like maybe within 30 seconds to a minute. Still, I'm glad to see ethics and bias issues are taking over the regulatory uncertainty. Privacy concern, as I said, in list at the moment. Cybersecurity is 40%, which is interesting. So the obstacle perception of the cybersecurity seems to be significantly lower than the ethics and regulatory uncertainty. Of course, what percentages you see here is a byproduct of the background of the people that are attending here. So for example, if you see the workforce impact and labor laws are not being voted as a major obstacle, it is possible that the reason for it is because people that are attending here are coming from a different domain, and that in that domain, the actual applicable areas that we face obstacles are normally ethics, regulation, GDPR related, and cybersecurity. So you can see that some of the areas where we have that is probably going to pick more votes if the demographic of our participants were different, if it makes any sense. The comments from our panelists regarding what we see. Yeah, this is the question number 3. So it really is, we will go into whatever you write in here in terms of what wasn't reflected by the obstacles. If you have obstacles that we didn't really mention, or you find is your most important challenge that we haven't really taken care of, and this will be very helpful in guiding us. So what comes to your mind, please share with us in the text box. Okay, votes are coming in. De-risk AI, invest AI, very good. Access to TCs, fantastic. We have covered this today, and you have seen in the chat where we can also, via HSBooster, help you to get access to technical committees. Formal education, fantastic. I think I like this. The fact that as we go forward, we really have to have this education in place. Not sure how AI Act applies to me. That's my own comment. Directive and standards applicable. I suppose it comes into HSBooster service as you go into consulting an expert and finding out what applies to the specific project. Overconfidence in AI. Very good. And I suppose some of the technical committee 21, joint technical committee 21, were work on the AI goes via different ISO standards, for example, when neural networks are being checked for the efficiency, or and so they come in to maybe underpin this overconfidence. Another point on the training, EU global competitiveness. I think this is a good one because we often want to write European bids where we talk about how we impact the EU. And then we want to compare ourselves, let's say, with USA, but there was a report where it showed that China is probably taking over USA on scientific impact. And I think the global competitiveness will then need to be compared to not just the USA, but also the Chinese competitors, especially when they apply AI and robotics. And in that field, they're extremely powerful. Prepare for changing job profiles.
If I can comment something, Farshid, on the training, actually in HSBooster, we have a training academy. Probably it's true that we don't have yet specific materials or modules on AI. We have it, more general on standardization, but this could be a next thing to do. Maybe provide some more deep dives also in terms of trainings on the topics that we are analyzing with these events.
True. And the other thing is when Renault invited, so I worked as a ISO ISO and British Standards representative for about 8 years. And I think that was a training for me. The fact that I went to the first meeting and I found out how a standard document is actually being written, how many meetings is needed, how to consider different points of views that come in from just cultural points or scientific advancements that people have experienced that they have not experienced. And the discussions that will lead into developing a standard can take like 5 or 6 years to get to a document, And I thought that was a training, but we can't expect everybody to benefit from that. Maybe they just don't have the caliber capacity. How can they really grasp it quickly without going into 8 years of interaction with the technical committee? The fact that we have access to technical committees is perfect, but then is there a way where the training comes from HSBooster, the training comes from our workshops, and the training comes from specific modules? Perfect. I do not see the chats yet because my screen is maximized on Slido. But thank you so much for the participation.
Thank you. I think we collected a few insights, and we can use in the summary report that we will do at the end of the series. I apologize that we were a little bit late, like 10 minutes late, but there were really a lot of insights, and that we can continue also in the next 2 events we have next Thursday and on the 11th. Maybe Julie, if you can just put in the chat again the link for the registrations, we'll leave it for the participants who are still here. And then I think we can close it for today, and hope to meet you again all next weeks. Thank you very much to all the speakers and all the participants.
Thank you very much.
It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.